Hello, my name is Prashanti. I'm an herbalist, activist, yogi, ethnopharmacologist, and the herbal facet of the original Organic India crew. This journal today is about adaptogens, and there's many things that we could say about adaptogens, including spending a lot of time detailing specific herbs, but this will be more of an introduction to adaptogens. So, adaptogens, the most important herbs to know, use, and share. As I said, this is part one of the adaptogen presentations. There's so much to say, and in general, you learn a lot from these presentations, but it's best to learn it face to face in the context of a class or a session. So here's a cairn that I built to the ancestors in a place called Vasudhara, which is one of the main places in India where you do honor the ancestors. One of the reasons why this photograph is here is because it's up in these valleys where some of the greatest adaptogens on the planet live and thrive. But there's also something else implicit here, which I will let you discover. Why is honoring the ancestors part of the whole adaptogenic picture? So just what is an adaptogen? First of all, there's three main facets as far as the Western definition of adaptogens that was presented by Russian researchers starting back in 1958, in this case, Lazarev. The first is the herb has to have a increased systemic resilience to any kind of stress. Second, it has to be a homeostasis invoking. In other words, it has to be two directional. It has to invoke balance in the body. And third, it has to be innocuous. The man on the right, Dr. Narendra Singh, he's one of the great early adaptogen researchers. He is the one who did all the research on Tulsi and ashwagandha in the 60s, where a lot of the research till that time had been on alethro and rhodiola as adaptogens. He created an incredible amount of research. In fact, he has published over 200 articles in peer-reviewed international journals, and he's one of my mentors. He is a key part of Organic India since 1996. So adaptogens, here's a list of some adaptogens. Brahmi these are kind of like categorized in families, like the Brahmi family, which would include Bacopa monnieri and Centella asiatica, also known as goticola, and Shankpushpi, fantastic adaptogen, and lotus, which is also a high frequency herb. Kutki, which is Piquereza carrao, in that family of liver and kidney and deep organ adaptogens. I would also place turmeric and bumamlaki, which is Phyllanthus neruri, great herbs for the liver, kidney, and blood. Then Tulsi, there's three varieties, Rama Tulsi, Krishna Tulsi, which are Oxymum sanctum, and then Vana Tulsi, which is Oxymum gratissimum. Amlaki family, these are the three superfruits of Triphala, all being adaptogens. And so imagine, this is one of the reasons why Triphala is such a fantastic formula, because all three of the superfruits within Triphala are adaptogens. Then ashwagandha, this is more the earth element herbs, which would include ashwagandha and shatavari and lotus, especially lotus seeds, guduchi, which is Tinospora cordifolia, lithro, Siberian ginseng, and cordyceps, which is that huge, cordyceps is a mushroom that grows within typically caterpillars. And I had found this huge cordyceps caterpillar up in the mountains. And that's, the size was so immense. That's that, funny, look at my face right there. So a rose by any other name. Yes, in 1958 and in the 60s, there was a lot of research done on certain herbs, like maybe only 2, 3, 4% of all herbs that are adaptogenic. However, this in the traditions, this has long been known. For instance, in Ayurveda, a lot of these herbs are called rasayans. Rasayan meaning the path of systemic juicy essence. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is the superior and or imperial herbs that are the adaptogens. To some extent, we have the tropho-restoratives, which are herbs that are really great at optimizing the function of a specific organ. These, to some extent, are also adaptogens. And in the eclectic tradition of America, in the last, like 150 years, some of the herbs that they called alteratives could be considered an adaptogen. On the left there is a picture I took up in the Himalayas of a beautiful orchid. Some of my favorite adaptogens are the roots of these orchids. So, adaptogen energetics. This kind of helps you learn more about what the adaptogens are, which are the herbs, and also like how to use them in a practice or for your own wellness. On the right there, by the way, is Ang, the avatar. If you want to know more about the elements, the 5 elements, which would include knowledge of what Ayurveda calls the doshas, I would so recommend watching this series. It's a fantastic series, especially for children. And it's a great way to learn about the elements. So, air and space elements, which is more catabolic. This is things like Centella and Bacopa, Shankpushpi, Amla, Triphala is in all the categories. Cassandra, Damiana, that's kind of, I'm not quite, I wouldn't really put that in an adaptogenic category, but it's a powerful herb nonetheless. The fire, the metabolic adaptogens like tulsi and reishi and turmeric and pipali. Pipali, which is long pepper, part of trikatu. Ginseng, and of course goji. Goji is a long tradition of being a pretty good adaptogen. Again, some of these adaptogens are a bit warming, and so they might not be suitable for everybody, in this category at least. And this is why I'm giving you the list of these adaptogens by element. Then the next is the earth and water, the anabolic, the deep earth element adaptogens, like ashwagandha and licorice and guduchi and maca, rhodiola, some really wonderful herbs in these. Notice that there's not a lot of European and American herbs in here. It's, for some reason, it's like the locations that are the mega biodiversity locations on the planet. For instance, the Himalayas and the Amazon and some parts of Africa. This is where more of these adaptogens seem to arise. So what is stress? Stress, takes so many different forms. Emotional stress, like in relationships, biological stress, physical stress, like when you work really hard, environmental stress, everything from cell phones to being in a snowbank. Chemical stress, this is one of the worst sources. It's pretty ubiquitous in our world. It's in our food, it's in our air, and it just creates so much havoc. Intellectual stress. You can also use stress as a diagnostic tool, but that's a different story for a different day. So what does stress do? Originally we have stress and stress response because it really is fantastic to help us get away from the tiger. Now that's, of course, that tiger is our mother. But it's like that. So that's good for, maybe once a week or once a year. But now stress is upon us 24/7 practically. So it messes with us in so many different ways. It disturbs sugar balance. It increases the aggressive factors of digestion. It increases a lot of the stress hormones, which short term are great, but long term they're actually toxins. The cognition, there's so many different facets of the mind that it disturbs. Sexuality, it's rampant in our society now. Sexual dysfunction, and a lot of that is stress. It's definitely not great for the immune system. The heart suffers so much. Metabolism gets thrown out the window. It's definitely does not help us in our ability to cleanse our body, for our body mind to cleanse the body mind. And it's one of the ways that that stress shows up is lipid peroxidation. Lipid in this case is the fats that make up the cell walls. And peroxidation basically means rusting. So it just turns your cells into like these blobs. Not good. And that's part of the poor quality tissue rampant in so many cultures today. So adaptogens work on all three stages of stress. There's alarm, where you just first feel the stressor, then and that has its own package, its own attributes. And then the resistance, where the stressor continues, it lingers, and we just start working against it or working, but it's not a very sustainable situation. And then finally, if the stressor is long term and we can't deal with it, then we start having exhaustion. So adaptogens work on all three levels, but always remember that there's different protocols to support yourself at these three different levels. That's another topic. So adaptogens, some amount of stress is good. With little amount of stress, with little amount of pressure, our performance goes way down. And then with some amount of pressure or stress, then our performance peaks. But then if the stress or the pressure goes too high, again, performance plummets. So it's not like stress is bad. It's just that we need to be able to manage stress properly. And a great way to do that is with our anti-stress adaptogens. Adaptogens are all about balance. This is one of the reasons why they tend to be innocuous. They tend to do no harm because they support our body-mind to be balanced. And a lot of that is mediated through the endocrine system. I've so many times I have given out cups of Tulsi, which is one of the world's great adaptogens. And the person will say, oh, it's just what I needed. It's so calming. Give it to the next person. Oh, it's just what I needed. It's so invigorating. This is very standard, and that balance that Tulsi invokes has been given to us for millennia. That story in the form of one time there was a great king, Krishna, and he sat on what's called a Raj Tula, a king's scale, where the king would give his weight in gold to somebody or something like that. And so they put a ton of gold on one side of the scale, and no amount of gold that they put on there could weigh more than he did. And so then they put a bunch of gems, and nothing could weigh as much as he did. So then they put just a single leaf of Tulsi, and it balanced him. So this is a little ethnopharmacological moment telling us how deeply Tulsi can balance us. So, a lot of people don't believe in panaceas. They say, oh, it's a panacea. That means it's snake oil. It's so not true. When herbs or when something works at a really fundamental level within us, then that can help create systemic wellness. For instance, if something can balance histones, which is how genes are expressed, or this NFKB, nuclear factor kappa beta, which is a cytokine, which is within the cell and responsible for healthy cell function. If it can balance that, it's going to balance so much, and it's going to start appearing as a panacea. So there's two types of immunity in our body, the innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Innate immunity is very, very old in terms of evolution, and it actually is shared pretty much equally by plants and mammals and animals like ourselves, humans. And so we can borrow a plant's ability, we borrow a plant's innate immune system to support ours. This is how a lot of these herbs work. However, we can also, with the adaptogens, they also assist our adaptive immunity to be optimized as well. So adaptogens, since they are innocuous, since they tend to do no harm, we can use them as long-term therapies. Usually if you want to work on balancing something, there's a saying, it takes a month of therapy for every year that the imbalance was there. So if we because these adaptogens tend to be on the innocuous side of things, we can take them long term. And we can do deep restoration, whether that's from, rebuilding ourselves after a pregnancy or after a deep heartbreak, or just, deep fatigue, whatever the cause. For instance, in deep winter is a great time to do one of these deep restorative therapies. And it also supports the whole epigenetics side of things. If you're not, epigenetics is a whole other topic, but it basically is all about how these herbs can help our, optimize the expression of our genes. Like, yes, our genes are relatively set, but the expression of them is not. And these herbs help our genes express themselves in optimal ways. By the way, with that, uh, you know, you can use these herbs for long term, but you should kind of like change them up a little bit. Use different adaptogens. So next, adaptogens support great sex, no doubt about it, and which is like a double wonderful thing, because right sex can be really epic medicine in its own right. The air element adaptogens help open up the channels, open up the mind, help support the proper flow of nitric oxide, which is important sexually. The fire element adaptogens help increase activation, transformation, help focus passion, and the earth element adaptogens can offer deep juice and stability and a copious amounts of endurance. For instance, the deep juice, this shatavari, literally means 100 rooted one, but shat is 100, vri means root. But because the husband tends to be the root of the family, that also can mean 100 husbands or 100 lovers. Shatavari is so great at making a woman's reproductive system really deeply juicy that she can have 100 lovers. So this is one of the names, one of the meanings of this word shatavari. Ashwagandha, a fantastic adaptogen, literally means that having the grounded strength of a stallion. So that also has this whole connotations that strongly imply, and it's true, that support really great sex. So adaptogens and epigenetics, this is one of the things I was talking about. This is a whole other topic, so I'll just skip over this, but just realize that these adaptogens deeply help us support positive change within us and help us attain our highest potential. And also this responsible choice. Like, a lot of people might fall into victim mode where they'll think, oh, it's just my genes, I can't do anything about it. But that's so not true. You can totally feel free to be victor, not a victim, because you can take the right foods and have the right practices, and you can actually change the way your genes are expressed. You might not change your genes themselves, but you'll change the way your genes are expressed. So there you have it, an intro to adaptogens. So check in soon, and I will talk more about adaptogens and cognitive function, specific adaptogens, as well as a whole new paradigm shift that adaptogens represent. Thank you, and fare thee well.